is also when you are a smaller program, a newer gymnastics program, you don't have the luxury of treating gymnasts like they're expendable. So you absolutely have to. I was about to say the word cherish, and then I vomited as it was coming out because gross. But you have to really take care of the athletes.
Remember, this show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two. This week, we are tracing the history of Brazilian gymnastics from the 1990s team that finished dead last at Worlds to standing atop the Paris floor podium with a bow to the greatest of all time. The map of the birth of a gymnastics powerhouse is what we're talking about today. It's June 24th, 2025, and welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation.
Your name is Jessica.
Oh yeah, I'm Jessica. I'm already just so thinking about our commissions.
And my name is Rebecca Andrade. And I'm perfect. So today we have a commission from Liam, who won our Olympic fantasy game and won a full commissioned episode, who says, what about the history and rise of Brazilian gymnastics? From the innovation of Diane dos Santos and Daniele Hypólito to the longevity of Jaji Barbosa, building the foundation for Flavia and Andrade. You could maybe even touch on the future trajectory of gymnastics for Brazil.
So, Liam, thank you so much for this. Club Gym members can commission topics and make us rage or joy about any topic they want, as long as they're tangentially gymnastics related, that is. Club members help us pay our bills, travel to competitions like World Championships, where we filmed, if you're a visual listener, lots of the footage that you're going to see in this episode. Check out all the perks at Join the Club tab on gymcastic.com, or just win fantasy like Liam. Just really win. That's even easier.
Beat everybody else.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Fantasy is not hard or anything. Okay. Shall we begin?
Yes. So by way of an introduction to Brazilian gymnastics, I want to hear from you just generally how you would characterize the Brazilian women's gymnastics team, or what makes them special, or just what you think of when I say the Brazilian team.
Okay. So I want to say the biggest thing about this is, like, if you want to know what it's like to go to Brazil and what, like, the spirit of the Brazilian heart is, that this team, watching this team anywhere, will show you what it's like. They are the embodiment of the Brazilian spirit, loving, body positive, dancing, embracing the joy of the moment is always part of the team vibe. And I feel like that's very Brazilian. And just so you know, I'm just going to say, I played capoeira for a very long time. And I went to Brazil to play capoeira and stayed with friends. And so I have some tiny bit of experience with Brazilian culture. And I was told many times, the joy, embrace the moment, that is the Brazilian thing. And I think of that, what I've learned from Brazilians, every time that I see this team, I'm reminded of that. And so they are also, like, the thing about them is they are secure and confident women, and they emote. Emoting is part of their superpower as a team, not being robots. Not being the Marta Karolyi would hate this team. Like, they are not. That is,
yeah, I mean, that's fair.
Compliment.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Biggest compliment you can give them is Marta Karolyi could not stand this team. It's also like I remember one time Coach Rick said, is this a healthy, the way you decide if it's a healthy gym is you see high schoolers in there. No problem. This team, lots of 20-year-olds, so past high school. And then different body types. Like, that is the other thing. Like, there isn't a Brazilian type of gymnast. There isn't one that's like, oh, they're all powerful or they're all artistic. There isn't one type. You can be both in different combinations and be successful in the Brazilian program. And the other thing is sportsmanship. They exemplify gymnastics as a team sport, not an individual sport. And we're going to play a lot of our videos from our YouTube channel. And we have so much stuff with Brazil because Brazil, this is the thing about this team. They understand their roles as professional athletes and ambassadors for the sport. So we always get great time with them in the mix zone. So this interview is from 2023 with Flavia and Lohani. And it was after winning team silver. And I asked, Lohani was like, she doesn't have a lot she's not a person that's going to brag about herself. So I made a point of asking Flavia about her. Tell me about your teammate. Tell me about her journey to get here. And this interview, I'll link it so you can watch the whole thing, because Flavia has so much to say about her teammate and how great she was. And so this is after I asked her about Lohani, and this is the very end of the conversation.
Because we know how much you worked to be here.
Thank you, Lohani.
It's no wonder you guys won a medal. You are amazing, amazing team. Now I'm crying
Thank
too.
you, GymCastic supporters, always.
Thank you so much, you guys. Parabéns.
I think
this is like the thing about this interview is Lohani started to cry listening to Flavia talk about her, and all what, because Flavia said so many things about what she is as a person, as a contributor to the team, and she kept saying it doesn't matter what she did just on bars. She was there helping us on every single event, always getting us what we need, always making sure that we did well. They really get like the things that you hope that people will get out of being in a college program in the US, that they'll see like all the ways that they can be rounded as a human being. You see that with the Brazilian team. And the other thing about them is I mentioned before how like we always get good time with them in the mix zone. And that's part of like why I feel like they know their roles. Like they are professional athletes, and part of their job is to communicate with the public to let them know their struggles, their triumphs, their gratitude for the support that they have, because programs don't thrive in darkness. You have to talk about what's going on, and you have to share with people. This is also part of how you get your funding. So I think there's a lot to learn from the team in terms of communication, ambassadorship, and showing the highs and the lows, both in the way that they conduct themselves. And also, there's another thing in the mix zone I want to say. Their staff is always checking on them. Always like, are you guys tired? Are you hungry? Do you need anything? Is this too much? Like, are you sure you want to stay and do another? Like, there's never pressure to leave and not do interviews. They're always encouraged. They just, do your thing. But they're really always checking on their well-being. And the other thing I love about them is like it's a technique meets art combo, which gives you really well-rounded gymnasts. So yeah,
I think they do a good job of breaking I guess it's maybe a rhetorical crutch or an easy narrative, like, oh, this is a power gymnast, this is the artist. And those are different things. So to that point, yeah, you never separate those concepts when you're talking about the Brazilian team.
Yeah, and what I didn't talk about is like they're adults. There's a lot of adults. They're mostly adults. It's an adult team, and that's one of the other things that I love about them so much is like, just seeing like, yes, you can be successful. Well, high school is kind of like why would you? No. This is all your training and the times that you do your gymnastics. Like when you get to be your greatest is like them, like when you're older and in your 20s and you have all your mental and physical faculties. I think
that's also part of why they exemplify what it takes to be successful in modern women's artistic gymnastics, because it's not like you can't just have a program where people are like, I'm 17 and I'm done. You need people to stick around longer. And I think that's part of what Brazil shows other countries in terms of how you be successful right now in women's artistic gymnastics. But it wasn't always this way. So we'll start as we trace the history of Brazilian gymnastics. We'll start with a Brazil before they were famous section. Some quick facts about the early years. So it was 1978 when Brazil first sent a full women's team to a world championships. That was 78 worlds in Strasbourg in France. Then in 1980, that same quadrennium, Claudia Costa Magalhães became the first Olympic gymnast for Brazil. This was the Moscow Olympics that was boycotted by a number of countries. It was an extremely strong gymnastics competition because the best gymnastics nations were still there: Soviet Union, Romania, East Germany, Czechoslovakia. But in terms of the other countries, it wasn't well attended. But Brazil was one of the countries that did go to that Olympics, and it became an opportunity for Brazil because there weren't a lot of people there. So this is first Olympic gymnast for Brazil, first Olympic all-around final for Brazil, best finish at a world competition for Brazil, all came from Claudia Costa at that 1980 Olympics. which then just in a very fledgling way started things in motion. Brazil won their first international medal at the 1983 Pan Am Games when they won team bronze. And then we saw the emergence of really, I would say, the first trailblazer of Brazilian women's gymnastics. It was Louisa Pente Ribeiro, who won a number of medals in the late 80s and really started to be like, I am a Brazilian gymnast who is also decorated. So the first individual medal for Brazil at that Pan Am Games in 1987. 1988, competed at the Seoul Olympics, made the all-around final. So that's the first all-around final at the Olympics, at a fully attended Olympics, because they had been to 80. Brazil had sent a gymnast to 84. Those were not fully attended Olympics. So then 88 was the first all-around final at a fully attended one. Parente went on to win the first continental gold medals ever for Brazilian women's gymnastics in 1991 at the Pan Am Games, when she won vault and bars. So it was really the first one, I would say, who made a major mark on the international scene and had major results was Louisa Pente.
And I love that we start with her breaking dumb barriers, because at her peak, she was 5'5", which is a normal, healthy height for a gymnast. Great gymnastics.
Or if you are Svetlana Harpina, you are 5'5" and talk about yourself like no one has ever been as tall as you.
She's always my favorite example. I just want to look at, we have this, I want to show this little video of her floor routine where she has the most beautiful arabesque you have ever, like a développé arabesque to the rear, whatever that's called in French. Oh, so beautiful. Like, this is the thing, like there was never like a time when Brazil wasn't ready to be at the competitions they were at. They were always excellent gymnasts who had beautiful form, great skills, knew how to get attention also. When you start your floor routine and you're laying like on, you put your feet over your head in a straddle and your hands behind you the other direction, you're like making an opposite directions X on the floor. Excellent way to be like, what's happening over here? This was also like...
So you're saying Brazilian gymnastics invented KJ's Oklahoma?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were the first, obviously.
They did it.
Obviously. No one ever did that before. Parente. But this was the pain of the nation era. They were very like, emoting.
Our best era.
Yeah, we have to. It was very Kathy Johnson era still in the Parente area in the early 90s. Also, she started all of her beam routines for much of her career with reverse planche, but in long ways, not sideways, which is easier, but long ways on beams, like a straddle reverse planche, or she would do it sometimes with like one leg bent reverse planche. This is a reverse planche, is like you're levering yourself and your body, your feet are coming over the front of your head, that direction. Not
if
like,
you see a gymnast do something that makes your back hurt while sitting down, that's what Jessica is describing.
Exactly. And also, I wondered, is there anything about that kind of handstand start in this era of like the late 80s, early 90s, a planche?
The Christy Phillips, being Christy Phillips?
Yeah, does it remind you
of the correct role model, Christy Phillips?
So do you know who coached Parente for a short amount of time?
I don't. Who did?
The Karolyis.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. That is according to the Sport Journal of Rio de Janeiro. And I was like shocked I kind of was watching the routine and I was like, these look sort of like there's something, but so many people are doing this same kind of things at the time, but so well done. And so I was looking into her background. Yeah, it was very interesting that she went there for a little while. So, okay, after Parente, what happened?
Yeah, well, we have 1991 Worlds that year. So it is it emphasizes that things are stop and start, and you have one gymnast who's strong, but you don't really have necessarily a full team or a full program. So you had Parente winning medals at Pan Am's in 1991, but then at Worlds in Indianapolis in 1991, Brazil finished in last as a team, only sent 4 athletes when it was a 6-member team at that point. So you see kind of that it's not a full rise. It's not just like, okay, and now we've started and we're going up and up and up. There are these stops and starts, and then you have individual standouts. Soraya Carvalho then came along in the mid-90s. 1995 Worlds, she made the first World Championships all-around final for Brazil. 1996 Worlds, that was a year where there were Worlds and Olympics the same year. She was 9th on beam, qualified to the Atlanta Olympics, but was injured. So then there were no Brazilian women at the Atlanta Olympics, which is, again, one of those things. It's, to us, maybe it's, the Atlanta Olympics doesn't feel that long ago. It was a long time ago. It was 30 years ago almost. But 30 years ago, no gymnasts at all at the Olympics, to being, you know, Paris 2024, the second most decorated women's team behind the US. But then we start to see the beginning, I would say, is 1997, where you start to trace the beginning. Brazil defeats the United States at the Pan Am Championships, the brand new Pan Am Championships, led by a new junior team member named Daniela Hypólito.
Oh, Daniela Hypólito era. So before we talk about that, I want to give you guys a little update on what's happening around here at GymCastic. Number one, we are having a live show, which is taking place on Friday, July 18th in the evening. After get home from work, have a little dinner, come over to the live show. It's at the world famous IO Theater, but you have to buy your tickets ahead of time. You can buy virtual or in-person tickets, so you can basically watch and ask questions. If you have a virtual ticket, you can interact with the show. You get to ask questions, and there's games, and you are part of the show. And you can do it from anywhere in the world. And if you can't make it live, you can watch the replay. But you have to buy the tickets now because we're a very, very, very small staff. And it is very hard for us to help you on the day. So we would love to help you if you have any questions ahead of time. So you can go to gymcastic.com and get your tickets. Again, it's Friday, July 18th. The top secret special guest. A very top secret special guest. Also, if you're watching this on the Tubes of You, please subscribe, because only like half of you are subscribers. So please hit the subscribe button. We have lots of great videos of Brazilians on our YouTube channel, which you will enjoy, including 6 minutes nonstop of Flavia training beam, just so you know. This is who we are. So welcome. Okay.
So I mentioned Daniela Hypólito. Let's start by talking about, I think, the thing we most associate with Daniela Hypólito, which is longevity.
Yeah. So she is basically the pioneer of the career of longevity, which is so what Brazil is known for. So
at least next to Chuso, but yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's Chuso, and then there's Brazil.
Yeah.
Okay, so Hypólito, she her international, not to be confused with her brother, also one of the first medalists for Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, dude, she just
apparently they did Big Brother together this year in Brazil.
They were on Big Brother together. And also there's a video of them. It seems like it's like I hope it's their birthday party. I don't know. It's some party with like people with, you know, waiters with white tuxes with a silver tray in the background, walking around, and they are just doing gymnastics, her and her brother, back and forth. Like her brother keeps doing one-arm cartwheels, and she's doing like full or round off, layout, step out, full salute in the middle of this party, and it's adorable. It's on her Instagram. But anyway.
It's the correct theme for a party, which is
right.
Hypólito Gymnastics. You don't need to be a birthday. That's any day is an occasion for Hypólito Gymnastics party.
That's right. So her international debut was 97 Pan Ams. That's the thing, 97 Pan Ams. I can't get over how that was the year after the Atlanta Olympics is when she started competing internationally. So she went all the way through Rio in 2016, their home Olympics, at age 31. It's an incredible career. Competed 5 Olympic Games, 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2016. Competed at 12 Worlds from 99 to 2015. And then my favorite of the longevity Brazilians, showing that age is just a number, grown-ass women championships, Diane dos Santos, who has, of course, the Dos Santos Arabian double pike named after her. And she competed through London 2012 at age 29. 3 Olympics she competed in, all the way to age 29. And then, of course, Jaju Barbosa competed through age 33. She's going to be in a lot of the videos that we're showing in this episode. If you're a visual listener, how do they compare to the Chuso?
That's one of the interesting things, because when Jaji Barbosa won team bronze at the 2024 Olympics, she then tied Chusovitna with longest span from first World Olympic medal to last or most recent World or Olympic medal. So Chuso first medal was 1991 at that Indianapolis Worlds, and then 2008 Olympic medal on vault. That's 17 years. Jaji Barbosa, 2007 World all-around bronze medal was her first medal, and then 2024 Olympic team bronze. So it's really, in terms of medal accomplishments, they really should be mentioned in the same breath, which is, I don't think you usually mention people in the same breath as Chusovitna because of her longevity of her career and what a star she is in that regard. Barbosa has done the same thing in terms of a length of time spent as one of the top gymnasts in the world winning medals at the highest level.
Yeah, which is kind of amazing. Every Brazilian gymnast who has ever won a medal at a Worlds and Olympics has continued competing until at least age 25, except Julia Suarez, but that's going to happen. Don't worry, Julia, we believe in you. Yeah.
She was the young one of the 2024 Olympic team, so she hasn't had the opportunity yet to compete to age 25. But everyone else, yeah. Oliveira is, competing to 27, winning her medal at 27, Andrade 26, Flavia 25. And the interesting thing for what we forget, especially about Andrade, is she won her very first World or Olympic medal at 22. She hadn't won any medals until 22. Flavia hadn't until she was 24. So it's peaking at this age is a consistent thread for Brazil.
Yeah. And I love that because I feel like the US has like waves of this. Like there was a whole bunch of gymnasts who competed at 96 who then competed through, were in a wave of competing until their 20s. And now we have that happening again. But Brazil is very consistent of having this. And I feel like it's the investment in the gymnast. But we'll talk more about all of our feelings about why this happens.
Well, I mean, what would you say that tells us about the birth of a gymnastics powerhouse? The theme of our episode, that we've seen Brazil rise to being, the second most decorated women's team behind the US.
I mean, for me, it's an investment in the athletes. So it's not, okay, you're on the team, you're injured, so now you've been out for a year, so you lose your funding. You lose your ability to pay for your housing and your training and all this stuff. It is not a what have you done for me lately program. It is a investment in athletes over the very long term, very much like a dance company does. Like they pick a crop of dancers, bring them in and develop them. They are an investment in the future of the health of the dance company. And I feel like this is very much what Brazil does. And it is so much different than what the US does. And I like this kind of system because this is how stars are born. You have gymnasts who over and over and over, this person, their story, and you see them again. And it's so healthy for a sport. Having someone show up, compete once and be gone is not healthy. That's not a healthy sport. It's not the way to grow a sport. And I love that you think about the gymnasts that they had on Andrade having so many injuries, but they saw her potential and she stayed for all this time, part of the program. And for me, that is what the longevity says. It is, we have invested
in you. You wanted to be there and you came.
And you also see it just from an outside perspective, I feel like you have a thread of culture that is continued because the gymnasts have been through this and they bring the expectation and the culture of support, and this is how we work out and this is the level that we expect from each other. And so you have continuity in the culture of a team, which is very different in other teams that aren't like this. And so I like seeing that, and people that know each other and have competed for a long time and know how to support each other. And it's just healthy to have team leadership like that. Even though I'm like, team leadership, blah. But it's real. It makes a difference. It's, you're not starting from scratch every time, and that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
How
So
about what do you think?
Oh, I agree. I think it is also when you are a smaller program, a newer gymnastics program, you don't have the luxury of treating gymnasts like they're expendable. So you absolutely have to I was about to say the word cherish, and then I vomited as it was coming out because gross. But you have to really take care of the athletes as which you should always do, of course. But you don't have the luxury of, oh, you're hurt, so someone else can be on this team instead. It's you or it's no one. So you better make sure everyone is okay and wants to continue. Returning to our timeline, we've moved into the era of the first stars of Brazilian gymnastics with Daniela Hypólito, with Diana dos Santos. So we go to 2001 Worlds in Belgium. Daniela Hypólito wins the first ever world medal for Brazil. That was silver on floor. Dos Santos also made that final. She finished fifth. Daniela Hypólito finished fourth all around at that Worlds, which is a wild rise because Sydney Olympics 2000, Hypólito set the all-time Brazilian record for best finish in an all-around competition at 20th place at Sydney. And, the Sydney all-around doesn't count. We've all established that for many, many reasons. But 20th, the best all-around finish ever for Brazil, goes to Ghent, Belgium in 2001, up to fourth. 1 year. 16 spots, improves the record, nearly wins a medal in the all-around. It's just this dramatic, huge, immediate rise versus what had ever happened before for a Brazilian gymnast, or what I said that too passively, what a Brazilian gymnast had ever achieved with her hard work and talent.
That's right. Hard work and talent. I remember this is the era of talking about Brazil, like starting to be like, oh, Brazil, what's Brazil going to do? Brazil's coming up. Like this is the era when they were part of a conversation and Hypólito was the reason that started. And then we had 2003 Worlds, which were in Anaheim. And
Jessica, the international expert on 2003 Worlds, because she was there in person. So I defer to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for remembering that I was there in person, because I have so many stories from this world. We could do a whole behind the scenes on stories from this world. But
and just this Worlds, because oh my God.
And also the gymnastics. But this World was, I was there as a spectator right in the front. And I mean, like, as close as you could get to the floor. So I saw a lot of things. And seeing Dos Santos.
Do you know if you were ever on camera? And can we go find 2003 Jessica? Can the people go find 2003
maybe.
Jessica in the crowd? You're like,
maybe.
No, absolutely not.
Oh my God. Yeah, that could be. Oh God. So Dos Santos, the most important thing was watching Dos Santos in person. And this is where Dos Santos wins the first world title, world champion for Brazil. She is the first ever world champion for Brazil on floor. And again, we're talking about women's gymnastics here. In terms of all these records are women's gymnastics. Being in the crowd there, what I remember was like, it was so exciting because there was so much hype for her. And we were so excited for Brazil because this was totally achievable. We're like, yes, she can absolutely win this. And this is also the year that the US had 3 gymnasts. They had to use all of the alternates because someone was injured or sick, everyone. So it was like, even with it, that didn't even matter though, because she could still absolutely win floor. And the thing about Dos Santos though, is she is extremely bouncy. She's a very bouncy person. And you were always sort of terrified that she would bounce herself. I mean, this is also why I feel like it was genius about her longevity, because she was not someone that was going to stick perfectly every single time and contain her sprightliness. She is probably because she didn't do that she could last for so long. But you're always a little worried that she was going to bounce herself into the stands and couldn't control her landings. And she seemed to get more and more excited the further she went in the competition. So I was like terrified for her, but the crowd went crazy when she did her Dos Santos. It's huge. It's also like, I mean, we were like, when are you going to do it laid out? Because it was so good. The crowd was super excited. The crowd was totally behind her. Everyone went nuts for Dos Santos. We were all worried that she might bounce herself out of bounds because she's a very different kind of technique than most gymnasts. And she did not contain herself like many gymnasts are taught to do. And I think that was her superpower. And what I remember the most about it was when she won. She was so overjoyed. She did not want to get down from the podium. Like after they were done and you take your picture and you hold your flowers up, she was just like, well, I don't want to get down yet. And she was just, I'm like, the way she looked was just like, this feeling, I never want it to go away. And so then she did a little samba on top of the podium, and it was iconic. The samba, Brazil, this is where it's from. And it was a beautiful moment of culture.
I think one of the other things about Dos Santos's floor is maybe more than any other gymnast, her tumbling identity was incorporated into her choreography and her performance. And it was all like, a lot of people, I don't think you can really do that, but the bounciness of the way she just generally moved was always part of the choreography as well. And it made everything feel cohesive in a way, more so than most routines, where even the best, the most elegant performers, then it's, I'm going to stop and do a tumbling pass. And it really felt cohesive and like, I am bouncing, I'm bouncing, I'm bouncing, I'm bouncing, I'm bouncing, and I'm still bouncing, and I'm still bouncing, and I'm still bouncing. And it's all part of just like, this is who I am as a gymnast.
The other thing I remember from this Worlds is Georgette Vidor, who was a coach of, she went back to like coaching in the Parente days. Like, this is how long she had been coaching. We could do a whole podcast on her wild career, and she's been like coached all these gymnasts, has been fired from the federation, and went into politics, was an elected politician for a while, and then went to all the stuff, and now is back with Brazilian gymnastics. But anyway, she also famously was with the team traveling to an event, and there was an accident, and she was the sole survivor, I believe, of this accident, was left wheelchair bound for the rest of her life. And she was there at this event to see, like, someone who was at the very start of Brazilian gymnastics to this point. And so many people went up to her and congratulated her too, as like a founding person who had been through so much of this. You knew where she was because so many people went up to hug her and be like, we did it. Like, here we are. It's happened.
So it wasn't just Dos Santos. It was, we're starting to have lots of gymnasts on a team who can contribute big scores, advance to, a higher level as a squad, not just individual stars. We saw the beginnings of that at 2003 as well.
This was also where Lai Souza was one of the team members of this team. And she is a gymnast who came out in 2015. So another one of the women in this era of women coming out in gymnastics. And she also is the one that switched from gymnastics to freestyle skiing and was paralyzed from a skiing accident in 2014. So there's a lot of tragedy around what happened in this era and who was there, and also so much triumph and beauty in what happened as well, which is, I feel like, part of the Brazilian spirit of like embracing the moment and finding joy where you can. Yeah, there's a lesson we can all learn right now.
And thinking about Diana, like, if there's one thing we associate with Daniela Hypólito, or at least I do, it's her longevity. If there's one thing I associate with Dos Santos, it's the Dos Santos, the piked double Arabian, which she got named after herself at 2003 World. So technically, there are 5 skills in the women's code of points named after Brazilian gymnasts. We have the piked double Arabian for Dos Santos at 2003 Worlds. We also have the laid out double Arabian for Dos Santos from the 2008 Olympics, which we have a little bit of I don't know how different it was from the piked double Arabian. It was slightly more open.
Slightly, yeah.
But anyway, there is
a
a layout double Arabian in the women's code, which is the Dos Santos 2, which was named at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. We have Julia Suarez from the 2024 Olympic bronze medal team, who got the candle mount with half turn on beam, named after herself. So it's the back dive, and then you do a half turn before you grab the beam, named after herself at Pan Am's in 2021. And Lohane Oliveira got the Trent double Arabian piked. It's a Brazilian specialty. Double Arabian piked half out, named after herself at the Doha World Cup in 2021. Technically, according to the code of points, the first skill named after a Brazilian gymnast is the Araújo, the front layout double full off of beam dismount. That's a mistake because Bi Wenjing of China definitely did that at the 1996 Olympics before Araújo, and it was named after Bi Wenjing for a while, and then it disappeared. It's a code thing, but anyway, that's also in the code of points.
Brazil.
It's code drama.
China,
code
you
drama.
Need to make sure this is fixed. This is, yeah. Interesting.
So then we go on to the 2004 Olympics in Athens. This is the first time Brazil qualified a full team to an Olympic Games, coming off making the team final at 2003 Worlds. They have finished 9th as a team, so just missed the team final in Athens. This is the first time a Brazilian gymnast made an Olympic event final. So this is Diana dos Santos advancing to the floor final. Had an out of boundsy, which was kind of a theme for her Olympic final floor routines. As Jessica mentioned, finished 5th, but it was a big accomplishment for first appearance in an Olympic event final.
I just want to put this into context for, if there's people that didn't live through this like us, or need to put this in context. Sometimes you read those like timelines of history and you're like, oh, the pyramids were built at the same time that the woolly mammoths were still alive. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that, where you think these were, dinosaurs apart, but they're not. Dos Santos won floor at Worlds where Carly Patterson existed, was alive, and also did floor. Carly Patterson of the double Arabian.
They are contemporaries.
They are contemporaries. This was the that's too bad Worlds is where Dos Santos won.
Favorite thing.
Oh, that's too bad. Carly Patterson, an icon forever. It's no shame in showing that you're competitive. That's right. It's okay. It's literally a competition. So just to put it, it's hard to stress what a gigantic deal this was for Brazil and how huge this is for Brazil, because Brazil loves their athletes and celebrates their athletes. And I was like, oh, Dos Santos is going to be an icon in Brazil for the rest of her life, and there will probably be parades literally in her honor. So, as we should do for all gymnasts, we don't have enough parades. What are we doing in the U.S.?
Fair.
Exactly. Okay, so anywho, after the 2004 Olympics, where, Carly Patterson would win, Dos Santos was the world champion in floor going into that. Also, Dos Santos was only the second ever Black woman to win an artistic world title after Postel in 2002. Historic. I just want to talk a little bit about the outside coaches that were brought in to give new perspective, new techniques to the Brazilian program. One of the coaches that they brought in was the legendary Ukrainian coach Oleg Ostapenko, who coached Tatia Lysenko, Victoria Karpenko from Ukraine, we absolutely love. Lilia Podkopaeva, you might have heard of her. So definitely one of those coaches who knows what it takes to give a technique to an athlete to make them successful. He coached Dos Santos, and then he was replaced in 2010 by Irina Ilyashenko. And they also
if that name, Irina Ilyashenko, doesn't ring a bell, if you saw her, you would say, oh yeah, she's that woman we always see with the Brazilian team. Like if you're just picturing like that woman you always see with the Brazilian team and have for a long time, that's Irina Ilyashenko.
Yes, and she's been there for a very long time now. And then they also brought in Valery Lukin for a little while. So my question for you is, what does this teach us about the birth of gymnastics powerhouse?
Way to bring it back around. I think there is a sense of, and something that is very difficult for some gymnastics programs, which is acknowledging that someone from another program or another country might have information or experience, a lot of times just experience coaching at this level and knowing how meets work and knowing all of those things, and has information that you don't have, and that they can come in and say, actually, you've been doing everything wrong and you need to change it and do it like this instead, and being willing to accept that, because we don't always see programs being willing to accept that sort of outside input, or being very tense, reticent about it, antagonistic toward someone coming in and say, actually, you need to change what you're doing. But I think it's also a through line in terms of countries that were not the Soviet Union, Romania, great from the start, have to bring in people who were there. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but we see that you have to bring in the people who have done this before so they can teach the new people how to do it and do the same thing. Or maybe they show accidentally by example how not to do things.
And sometimes it is like, I don't know if anyone's been in a relationship, if you're in a family or you have a partner or a spouse, and sometimes, a friend can tell you, someone you're close to can tell you the same thing 1,000 times. But if you bring someone else in, you're like, oh, they've done shiny things, I like them, they have the thing I want, then that they can say exactly what your family and friends and spouses said to you 1,000 times, but you're like, oh my God, so-and-so said this, I'm totally going to do it. And all your friends and family are like,
and you're not speaking from personal experience at all.
Absolutely not.
No.
I listened to, obviously my person that I've chose to love forever and always listen to them. No one else has to tell me. It's not like my sister says something and I'm like, this is brilliant. Oh my God, we should do this. This has never happened before. I don't know what you're talking about, Spencer.
Yeah.
So
anyway, Zsadzi Barbosa is going to arrive on the scene right now. We have moved to 2007 World Championships. Zsadzi Barbosa wins the first ever World All-Around medal for Brazil, an all-around bronze. This is the time in the timeline as we move to this point in the timeline, the era of Zsadzi Barbosa. 2008 Olympics in Beijing, Brazil qualifies to an Olympic team final for the first time. 2010 World Championships, Zsadzi Barbosa wins vault bronze. And so we see here one thing that is essential in terms of building a long-term successful gymnastics nation, which is you've cultivated the next generation. You've moved on and you still have successful gymnasts. You didn't have a golden generation and then boop, nothing. You have this next group, and Zsadzi Barbosa was the leader, I would say, of that next group after Hypólito and Dos Santos, who came in and was like, you know what I can do? Great gymnastics, and maybe I'm going to set some new records for Brazil, like a medal in the all-around.
Which, speaking of, I want to talk a little bit about Zsadzi, because one of the things that I really like about her, and so much of the Brazilian team, they know their gymnastics history, and they pay it forward. So when you talk to them, they will say, and you can watch some of these interviews on our YouTube channel, Zsadzi will say that when they finally had their medal at Worlds before the Olympics, the team medal, they were like, this was 11 Olympic cycles. This isn't us. This is for, and they can all name off, this is for Dos Santos, this is for Hypólito, this is for Pente, this is for all the people that did it before us. It's so impressive that they can communicate that, know the history, that they have taken time to learn that, and that they appreciate everything that it took to get them to this point where they have so much attention and so much achievement. And it's rare to find gymnasts who really, some gymnasts are, they're jocks. They do their sport. And some gymnasts are students of the sport.
Nerds.
And nerds, our favorite.
Yeah.
We love you all. But it's just so refreshing to hear that from them, and so much respect for the people that came before them, and so much paying it forward. So it's one thing that I always really appreciate about Zsadzi is, like, if I don't remember the statistics, she does.
You always need a fact checker with you, and sometimes it's Zsadzi.
And sometimes it's Zsadzi. She's really good. Okay, this is the most important thing, because every team has it. The controversies and drama.
Yeah. It's not always sunshine and roses. Any history that's only positive is leaving out some stuff. And that is also true of Brazilian women's gymnastics. So we get into this era of the London Quad, the 2009 to 2012 era, and it's marked by a number of controversies. So this is when Diana Dos Santos, who is still competing, got the 5-month ban for a diuretic. And sort of the story behind that and what she said afterward was, yeah, that was prescribed to me for a medical reason following a surgery. And I said it on the form, and I said, this was prescribed by a doctor, and this is why I'm taking it. And the reason is, and the reason she was suspended was if that kind of thing happens, if you have to take a banned substance for a legitimate medical purpose, you need to get a therapeutic use exemption, a TUE, to then for the drug organizations to be like, okay, you've been given permission to take what is otherwise a banned substance. Shouldn't have a TUE, so it's a failed test. And she got a 5-month ban for that, which is kind of, the dip in the run of greatness. This is also the time when we had, leading up to the London Olympics, when we had that weird thing with Zsadzi Barbosa's contract.
This was crazy.
The apparel thing where she could not compete on the London 2012 Olympic team because she had a contract with a different apparel company than the national team uniform apparel. And it was, one of, sadly not alone in the dumbest, worst reasons someone had to miss the Olympics category, which is you just look at it and you're like, couldn't we have come up with couldn't we have all gotten together and fixed this and found a way, come up with something so that she could compete at the Olympics? Because this is such an annoying reason to miss an Olympics, like an apparel contract. So it ended up, London 2012 Olympics. Brazil had qualified to the Olympics, so that was a strong accomplishment, but ended up finishing 12th out of 12th in team qualification. No one to event finals, no one to the all-around final. So the results were not there at this time, and you had kind of these, I guess you could call this maybe the growing pains era of what happens when you go from a small program to a bigger one, and suddenly there isn't, like, you look at what happened with Dos Santos, that's a case of maybe not having the organizational infrastructure or someone in charge to say, okay, these are the rules. This is what you need to do. I'm in charge of making sure that everyone knows exactly what they're supposed to do when it comes to drug testing and knows the rules. And I'm on top of this. Do you have the person? Do you have that organizational knowledge? And that we don't have that in these cases. Did a capybara just eat through your electrical cables to sabotage your national championship? Fuel yourself back up with Huel. Today's sponsor is Huel, spelled Huel, and their Black Edition ready-to-drink option is best used for sneaking a snack under the arena to ensure that the lights are always on and you can complete your national championship. It's not a snack, but better. It's a complete meal in one bottle. Preventing sabotage at meets has met its match. It has 35 grams of protein, 27 vitamins and minerals, high fiber and low sugar, so you feel full, focused, and ready to compete well into your 50s like Chusovitna. The best part is no prep, no cleanup, just grab and go.
I love Huel because it's an easy thing that I can grab when I'm leaving. When I forget that I need to plan my lunches on recording days or we're going to competitions, I can fill my suitcase with these. And I know it's like a whole meal. It's 35 grams of protein too, which gives me the energy I need and no dip, no blood sugar dip. So I also love it because it's delicious and portable, yummy, like a milkshake, because sometimes we may have heard many stories about the Rio test event where, people went to cover the meet and then there were only these weird hot dog, inedible, soggy things that, and nothing else to eat. And people really wished that they had brought their Huel chocolate flavor or vanilla flavor or iced coffee flavor complete meal with 35 grams of protein with them. New customers get 15% off plus a free gift using our exclusive code GymCastic at Huel.com. That's 15% plus a free gift for new customers using our exclusive code GymCastic at Huel.com. Please see our description for the terms and conditions. Skip the stress, not the nutrition. Try Huel today for complete nutrition bottled. So interesting about the contract thing with Jaju Barbosa, because that was 2012 Olympics. And in 2011, there had been 19 or 20 at the World Championships in Tokyo. That was right after Fukushima. And it was are they going to have it or not? And then everyone was like, no, it's fine. Nothing's radioactive. So I went to that one. Tickets were so cheap, you guys, $300 round trip. Yeah, this is nuclear disasters. There are always cheap plane tickets. Who knew? So anywho, you guys, the point is that how you see some gymnasts at meets, who's the most miserable. Wherever you see them, they look like they just want to kill everyone, not be there, and are so sad and angry and uninterested. Barbosa at that Worlds looked that way constantly, everywhere, the whole time. Just miserable. And the person that she's become and the team leader she is and how she has developed as a human being, I feel like this is what you get when you invest in people and you stick with them and you believe in them and you tell them you are great, we believe in you. This is how you get someone like Jaju, who is incredible. But it's no wonder, I think, at this time that there was weirdness happening, because she looked miserable. So I'm sure she was I want to do some stuff on my own. I don't need this crap. Which is also a normal thing to do at that age. You want to break away and do your thing. And this is all an important part of development. But anyway, I just want to say everywhere she was, it would be it was like a dark cloud followed her around the arena and the street, anywhere we like ran into her, and we were like, oh, she looks very unhappy right now. So, but then after 2012, things are resolved and great for her. But what I want to know is, what does this teach us about the birth of a gymnastics superpower?
I think we're just going to be asking that question like 10 years from now. Like just unrelated topics. We're going to be like, what does this teach us about the birth of a gymnastics superpower? What does doing a split leap teach us? I would say this era emphasizes that it's not all ups. Progress is not a one-way street. There are downs. And you see the growing pains of a burgeoning gymnastics program when you have controversies, dramas, all of this stuff.
Yeah. It's also, it's just like you rehabbing an injury, or like you're learning something. Like it's not going to be like a perfect arrow that goes straight up. It's not the graph, the unrealistic graph is not an arrow straight up. It is, dips and valleys. Some days are good, some days are bad. And I think like these are important things for a federation to learn as they are becoming a good federation too, is like, how do we educate the gymnasts? And not how do you educate the gymnasts, but how do you make sure they read the things, the emails that you send to them? They do not, perhaps.
Maybe some bigger gymnastics programs could also reassert this lesson, that maybe like reading the technical regulations before you go to meet would be a good idea or something.
Right. There's some things that could be learned. Anywho, okay.
It was a really interesting era at this point, also after the London Olympics, because it's something I completely forget about that has basically been erased from my mind by the success of these last couple of years, which is we go back 10 years, 2012 London Olympics, 2013 Worlds, 2014 Worlds. Brazil didn't qualify a single gymnast to an all-around final. 2012, 2013, 2014, no one even in the all-around final at a Worlds, top 24 with 2 per country. And so it was a low period, producing some anxiety heading toward a hosted Olympics in Rio 2016. But then we have 2015. And that is the emergence of Flavia Saraiva, the emergence of Lohane Oliveira. We start to see that moment again. That's the year we meet Flavia Saraiva's beam, and we understand that the future is bright for Brazilian gymnastics. But also that was the year, Worlds 2015, Brazil finished 9th as a team. So that was when it was really close between them and the Netherlands, and that was like the emergence of the Netherlands year. And we saw everyone was really like excited about, artistry, the Netherlands is finding a different way to do things compositionally and get the scores, and we're really excited about that. But also we really want Brazil to qualify a team to their home Olympics automatically. So that was really close. Netherlands ended up finishing 8th. They're in. Brazil's 9th. They're not in yet. So they had to go to enter the Rio test event. Also, by the way, the Rio test event sound effect. Also, by the way, so that was 2015 Worlds. That would have been Andrade's first year as a senior also, but she missed Worlds with an ACL tear, the first of several. So that was also a theme, but she was also not there. If she had been there, obviously they would have qualified a team, Andrade. But then, so Brazil had to go to the home Rio test event in order to qualify a team. Now we get Rebecca Andrade, and we get the Rio test event.
This was such a this test event is legendary for many reasons. This is where Panor tried to come back, and she had to vault to try to qualify Romania, because Romania was just like in the toilet after 2012, and it was so sad. And she did that like vault that looked like she was like a spider being attacked by 1,000 bees, and like almost killed herself trying to help her team. And there was like, it was also just treated like this just didn't seem like a perfect. It made people very nervous about how the Rio Olympics were going to be, because the test event was a huge deal, but the actual meet was just very messy. The organization of it, how everything was put together. And also, this is right before this. we had the vault, or right after this, we had the vault sandbag situation. No.
That's
Wait,
later.
False
That's
the-
like
yeah, much that was like
that's pandemic
yes.
time.
But 2018, we had the sabotage nationals after this.
So that was
this
after
is
this.
the Olympics.
So it's maybe that's the headline for this era. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was when so after the Rio Olympics,
Yeah, so after the Rio Olympics, the 2018 Nationals was the one which we talked about on the show at the time, where they started Nationals and they had like the first day of competition, and then they arrived at the arena for the team final, and like there were several cuts in the power lines suddenly.
Cuts, just
and the police were called.
Right. So this should also go in the ups and downs section. Like, what is happening? Who would sabotage a gymnastics competition? Although gymnastics is huge now. Like, Dos Santos won her medal. This is a big thing. They had a home Olympics. Didn't go great. But anyway, and then later, of course, we had at a World Cup or the Pan Am Championships. But meet in Brazil, that was an international meet. We had the vault kept coming off the ground. Let me repeat that.
That's not supposed to happen, by the way.
Yeah, the vault is not supposed to come off the ground. None of the equipment, by the way, is supposed to leave the ground.
That sounds like something you would rant about, like if they just added flying vault to the competition schedule, every gymnastics would be the most popular sport in the world.
That's right.
All you have to do is add flying vault.
So they had to sandbag the vault. And I don't mean water down vaults. I mean literally bring in sandbags as if for a flood and put them all over the vault feet to keep the vault on the ground. So the gymnasts were, feeling less insecure on that. But this all happened later. But the test event in Rio for Brazil was very tense.
Very tense, a very strange meet, but also super triumphant for the Brazilian women because Andrade was competing now. They had this team had Andrade and Saraiva and Barbosa and Hypólito. It was like all the stars who were still competing were there, and they dominated the team event at the Rio test event and qualified a team to the home Olympics. So, and that was a huge relief for them. Like, okay, we got the team qualified. We did it. It's fine. Everything's good. So then we move on to the Rio Olympics in 2016, which was for the Brazilian women, I think, an interesting competition to delve into, especially in retrospect, because there were a lot of really encouraging things happened in qualification. They qualified in 5th place as a team. They were pretty close. They were half a point behind Russia, who qualified in 3rd at that point after, before the team final. So they were kind of in it. Andrade had that great qualification day, and I don't think she wasn't really on the radar unless you were a gym nerd. I think before that I had seen her at the test event, but she had that great qualification and finished in 3rd. Flavia had qualified in 3rd place into the beam final, so they were Flavia withdrew from the all-around. Then the report was that she withdrew from the all-around to focus on the beam final, so there was a lot of medal potential and a lot of real excitement. They didn't end up getting the results. So they had a tough team final. They finished 8th out of 8 in the team final. Flavia finished 5th on beam. Andrade's beam in the all-around final was not like her. She had some errors in the all-around final. It was a much tenser meet. She was still brand new. I think, to international competition, and had a much tenser competition. So it ended up sort of being that the women's team was overshadowed by the success of the men's team at that Rio Olympics, because I think the enduring image I have is Diego Hypólito and Arthur Nori medaling on floor, and Arthur Nori is just in a ball crying on the ground, and Hypólito's crying, and it's like that's the moment of the Rio Olympics for the Brazilian team, because they had that medal success, and the women's team showed so much potential. And so for me, it's such an optimistic competition looking back on it, because we saw the future. We saw what could happen. We saw what was going to happen in terms of the ability of the gymnasts on this Brazilian team and this era, but they didn't have the results at the time, even though, when you're a gym nerd, it's just like, we got to see Flavia on beam. So if she has a huge, error on her series, like, all right, fine. But like, look at her switch rate. These are the important things. Look at her switch rate.
This is where the legend of the attack spiders happened. Was in Rio.
Do you want to explain the legend of the attack spiders or just leave
Yes. So in Rio, it's so weird because, okay, I have to go back to Andrade for a second because it was like we had been, as a gymnastics beating heart of fans, had been watching Andrade for so long, had been waiting for her for so long, had been watching her injuries, like hoping that she would stick around for so long that it's so weird to me, like that she didn't come out with like this, just win everything, her first Olympics. But I have to remember, like, she didn't have a lot of international experience when she got there, which is amazing to think now because she's so consistent and so excellent and obviously is an Olympic champion. But going back to Flavia, so Flavia's beam. And by the way, if you go to our YouTube channel, what we're showing now, we have 6 minutes of Flavia doing beam. We try to do this every
if you're watching this and not just listening to it, you might be sick of looking at our faces, so you could just watch Flavia do beam for forever.
Yeah, because we give the people what they want. And so Flavia's beam is iconic. It's like Ukrainian bars. Flavia's beam, Chinese beam. These are the things. And so we were so excited for her because we knew how well she could do in beam, or like she can absolutely medal, can absolutely happen. But then came the attack spiders from space. So she's doing her beamer, and I believe you coined that term. I cannot take credit for that, Spencer.
Oh. It sounds like something you would have come up with, but good for me.
It does, but I think it was you.
This is your influence.
You're welcome. She is doing a beautiful routine at the Olympic Games. We're so excited for her. We're like, yes, Flavia, this is your time. Just hit this. It's what you can do. You belong on the medal stand. And then she started to fall and was sideways. It was like she was in the Matrix, fighting off 1,000 spiders, trying not to fall backwards, swinging her arms 1 million times, and alas, did not win the fight. But that is where the attack spiders come from. Then sometimes this happens. Sometimes it's the beam witch, but sometimes it's attack spiders from space. And it was just one of those moments that, like, every time now we're just like, oh yeah, Flavia hits beam. But back then, when Flavia
Flavia hits beam is a very new development.
Right.
It takes time. But Brazil has taught us.
It was interesting going back and reading interviews about that her coaches have given over the years about her and from her start, and talking about how she was from the beginning as a very young, beginning gymnast. Very competitive. If she didn't do well, she was very unhappy. Like, this isn't good enough. I want to quit. This sucks. And so they had to talk to her a lot about like patience. And I think that this is one of the things that's paid off. Like, think about, like, she has been developed as an athlete from, she's one of the gymnasts that started with one of these like community programs that they go out to neighborhoods and give kids free opportunities to do sports. And then this is kind of where they find and recruit some of the talent. So that's where she came from. And it has totally paid off because Flavia's beam was always great. And now she hits her beam routines on the regular. And it's one of the things I appreciate about how Brazil has invested in their athletes over the long term.
One of the things we saw in this era now after the Rio Olympics, which we'll call the perseverance era, I think that informed the next several years, because this is the Andrade keeps tearing her ACL years. So it was the first ACL had her miss worlds in 2015. Second ACL tear was 2017. Third ACL tear on her third leg was 2019. And so we saw bits of Andrade, and she would be able to compete here, and then she would be injured here. And we didn't really, everyone knew the ability at this point because we had seen her at the Rio Olympics, but we didn't see her in competition for any extended period of time because she kept tearing her ACL. And one of the interesting things is Brazil won no world or Olympic medals between Jaji Barbosa's 2010 vault medal to Andrade at the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. And even though they had all of this, Flavia, Andrade, this great generation, it took a long time before the medals to come, the consistency to come, the health to come, the results to come, which then brings us to the age of Brazil, which is Tokyo Olympics to present, our final category in the timeline, the age of Brazil, when things all really start to come together. At the Tokyo Olympics, Rebecca Andrade has her moment, is healthy, and competing all of the events at the difficulty, at the ability level she would want to, all at the same time, wins a silver medal in the Olympic all-around, nearly a gold, wins gold on vault, emerges. At that point, I think that's when we started talking about best ever vaults. I mean, now I think we're in a place where it's like, yes, best ever chung ever done in gymnastics belongs to Rebecca Andrade, but that was when we went from she's a great vaulter to we're seeing her do things better than anyone else has ever done before. And that's when it's in these last few years that I think that has emerged. And then we also had Worlds that same year, the individual Worlds, because Tokyo Olympics postponed to 2021. And then we had the 2021 individual Worlds in Kitakyushu. Andrade wins gold on vault there as well. Wins bars silver. I think fair to say would have been the world all-around champion had she competed floor there, had she competed all 4 events. I don't think I'm going out on a limb, right, to say that would have happened.
That would have happened, absolutely. And I asked her about it. That's the thing. We were the only media we were the only people given a visa to go to Japan. So during during COVID, and somehow we were given a visa. And so we have videos of this competition, which is the only ones. And if you ever want to use any of our videos, please just ask us, and we will work something out with you. But yeah, I asked her though. I was just like, so are you gonna do floor? Because if you do floor, you're absolutely gonna win. And she was like, and she was like, it's up to my coaches, and we've decided. And I'm like, but you 100% would be the world champion, right? And she was like, she was very like, I trust my coaches to keep me healthy. This is how I got here. So I am not tempted by the fact that I would 100% obviously beat Melnikova and be, she didn't say that, those are my words, and be world champion. But you can watch those interviews with her as well. But I mean, it was like, if she did floor, she would have won. But and then there was the whole floor controversy that happened with Melnikova, and there was like an upgrade. There had to be an inquiry. For her floor score, flashing, it was a foreshadowing of all of the gymnastics meets ever. But I appreciate that they have, this is another thing. It's not just like, well, she keeps tearing her ACLs, like we're not going to work with her anymore. It was, we have a plan. So she only does floor like every other year for 6 months, I think at the time was how she did floor. And then she does not do floor. It's like, and now she said that was probably her last floor that she will ever do in Paris. She won, that's it, because it's how her body obviously can't handle that much. And so they've created a program that works, and it's so smart. It's not, you have to do this to win, and this is your one chance, and then that's over. It doesn't matter because you'll be a hero forever and it'll be all worth it. It's no, we want to keep you as healthy as we can so that you can continue your career. And this is like, I mean, the fact that Brazil is good with her plan and not having to do that floor all year round every time. Like Brazil is saying, yes, we know we're giving up a medal. That is not a thing that happens in sports. In case anyone's aware, elite sports are not healthy, and sacrificing your body is the whole thing for glory or whatever. So it's just a huge deal that she was supported in her decision to say no for longevity.
Yeah.
Oops. Wrong sound effect. She got punched in the face accidentally. Sorry, I gotta move my sound effects back around. Anyway, she didn't get punched in the face. They were done punching her knees in the face, and she was allowed not to do it. Anywho.
And the decision paid off, as we are now able to look in retrospect, as we head toward years where now it's the expectation is that Brazil will win medals at world championships, at the Olympics. It's, yes, how many medals is Brazil going to win? Not, are they going to, 10 years ago, are they going to qualify anyone to the all-around final? Now it's how many medals are they going to win? 2022 Liverpool Worlds, Andrade wins vault gold again on a streak. Floor bronze. The team finished 4th that year. That was when, and then Flavia was hurt, and it was a whole thing. And that was when Canada won their team bronze medal, because that team final was all over the place. 2023.
That was
in
also,
Antwerp.
I think, the Worlds where we got the famous video of Flavia almost fall, because this is the Spieth floor. So, if you don't hit it right, you will be flipped onto your face. And she almost did that and rebounded out of a pass and was trying to not fall on her face and was, wheelbarrowing. She was waving her arms and her legs. Windmilling. Thank you. It's very different. A power source, not a carrying dirt source. And then she kicked backwards her coach right in the nuts. And it was hilarious. And the poor coach, but also she was laughing very hard. But yeah, her ankles are not so great. But she had the magical ankle rehab. And that's the other thing. Her freaking surgeon travels with the team. How many other teams have not their team doctor, their surgeon who is doing the operations travels with the team? That is also a huge thing. Okay.
Moving on to 2023 Worlds in Antwerp, 6 medals for the Brazilian women, just behind the US with 7. The most successful competition in Brazilian gymnastics history. That's team silver. That's Andrade's all-around silver. That's Andrade's vault gold. So that's then 4 in a row. Tokyo, Kitakyushu, Liverpool, Antwerp. That was 4 vault golds in a row. Andrade's floor silver, beam bronze. Flavia got her individual medal that we had been waiting for and talking about. Her floor bronze. I think our main thing that we were talking about before that Worlds is Flavia the best gymnast ever to not have an individual medal? And she was like, for a second. And then I'm getting my individual medal, and that's over. That conversation's over now. She got floor bronze there. And then, of course, we go to the Paris Olympics. Brazil wins Olympic team medal with the bronze in the team final. Andrade, all-around silver behind Biles, vault silver behind Biles, and then, of course, floor gold to cap off the event. A 4-medal Olympics for the Brazilian women as they become, as we mentioned, the second most decorated women's program in gymnastics at this point, at present, currently.
So my question for you now is, what does Andrade's challenge to Simone as being really the only, besides Suni, the only true contender, not just for all around, but for vault gold, who has, if Simone's in the competition, she's going to win the vault gold. But Andrade, 100%.
But she makes it close. I mean, she has to land.
Close. And I feel like Simone knew that she actually had to do the double pike to win. She needed it. And that is not normal for her. That was, if she could, do whatever and always win. But Andrade's form is so good. And before the Paris Olympics, we had that vault at Pan Am Championships, I think it was, where she did the greatest single chung that's ever been done in the history of gymnastics. It was so perfect. And if she had done, which I asked her many times in Paris in the mix zone, I was like, are you sure? So will you do the triple Yurchenko here? And it was like, there's a possibility. I mean, they always wanted to keep, they have to play the strategy game. Let's make Simone worried. They were never going to do the triple Yurchenko. But I'd be like, is there a possibility? Will she do it? If Simone does, if Simone's vaults are perfect and she needs a triple Yurchenko, will you do it here? And if you need it to win? And they were like, yeah, there's a possibility. She didn't do it. But what does it say about the, what does it say about, excuse me, wait for it, the birth of a gymnastics powerhouse? That they created the only real challenger to Simone on vault. They created. Yeah, and really, Andrade is this person.
And in the all around, this at the Paris Olympics, at least, the best challenger. I think. Well, on the one hand, I feel like,
floor, obviously, yeah,
and floor. Oh, did she win? Did
she won? By the way,
I don't think you, especially with a gymnast, you don't evaluate their place in history compared to other people. I think Andrade's place in history is based on her gymnastics.
That's so healthy, Spencer.
It's like, I don't think it changes based on who you're competing against, because we can look at your routines in isolation. I'm turning into a college coach. It's like, there's no opponent. We just have to be in our Bruin bubble and focus on ourselves. So I don't know. Andrade is just in her Bruin bubble, but it is, I don't think Simone's presence in competitions changes Andrade's place in history or her accomplishments. I think those stand as her routines. But it is an interesting conversation of, if Simone were not a gymnast, would we be talking about Andrade as the greatest gymnast of all time right now?
Yes. Yes, that she has the potential to be the greatest athlete.
Well, that's a different thing than is the greatest.
Yeah, is the greatest? No. Because when we say is the greatest,
a very real classification that's very important.
It's totally real. Obviously, I don't have a prayer candle of Protonova behind me for no reason, Spencer. She's obviously the greatest of all time.
Right,
if medals and winning doesn't matter, I have a whole pantheon of gymnasts. Obviously, that's the most important thing, how their gymnastics makes you feel. But if we're talking winning, no. She's not in the pantheon. Because there's so many.
I think she's in the pantheon.
Well, she's
how big is the pantheon?
She's not in the top, even in the top 3 of the pantheon, because
pantheons can be bigger than 3. You look at the Greeks. You've got the god of war. You've got the god of the harvest. You've got wisdom. You've got Andrade's got. She's at the main table. Like, Zeus is there. Athena's there. Andrade's Hermes, she's above Hermes. I mean, come on. Andrade's at that table. I won't hear another word about that.
She has to beat Horkina, Soviet, competed 6 months pregnant.
Horkina is the goddess of the underworld. I mean, we know that.
Everybody knows that.
She's not on Olympus. She's got to be.
But competed 6 months pregnant, Olympic champion,
Latina?
Soviet. Latinina, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
She has to beat Horkina, Latinina, and Simone to be in the and Shannon. Who's third on the list?
You mean of like the actual list, like the most?
Yeah, the actual real pantheon of like world and Olympic medalists. Shannon's pretty high up there.
I will go to thegymter.net to give credit to Lauren Hopkins, who has compiled this list of Files 1, Latinina 2, Horkina 3, Chaslavska 4, Turisheva 5, Gojin 6, Milosevic 7, Mustafina 8, Nelly Kim 9, Simona Amanar 10.
There you go. So, yeah, gymter.net will link it if you need to know D score rankings, if you need to know the research files, how how would the best of a country in their history, Lauren has so much great research on there.
Andrade is 15th on the list of combined world and Olympic medals right now.
Yeah, so she's like only mid.
But I think the original question was if Simone had not been a gymnast, if Simone's field trip hadn't gone to the gym that day, would Andrade have more medals?
Yes, absolutely. She 100% would. Yes.
And more golds.
Yeah, I think she totally would have.
So moving on to the final question in our commission, which was about the future. How would you characterize the next steps for Brazil? What does the future hold? What are we looking toward for Brazil?
Yeah, I think depth is 100% the thing, because this is the thing when you have a pantheon, if you will, of great gymnasts who have carried you through, and you have a history as a country of having so many great gymnasts. We have not seen many people break in to this top group, and which is good. That means the top group is super competitive. You want to have people that are giving experience to, that are coming up. And we've seen glimmers of that in this quad starting. But I think I would be sending some of the new seniors to everything. Mm-hmm. And with one of the, veterans who's healthy and wants to compete at those, to mentor them through it and also teach them all the histories of Brazilian gymnastics while they're at it, because they're very good with that.
Now, all I can think about is doing an entire episode of what if gymnasts were the pantheon of Greek gods on Mount Olympus, and who would be there and what would they be the god of?
Oh my God, can we? Okay,
that's just all I want to talk about that for 9 hours and just make a list spreadsheet about it and be like, okay, who's the goddess of wisdom and the arts of war?
Oh my God, also
who's the god of commerce, wrestling, gymnastics, and thieving?
Okay, maybe we need to open up a mini commission just on this, or not a mini commission. This is obviously an entire episode. But yeah, okay. Can we add that as a group commission, please? Fact checker who does. I don't have to do this anymore. Fact checker does
a wild flight of fancy about if there were the Greek pantheon of gods.
Yes.
Who would the gymnast be?
Oh my God.
I will say to the point you were actually making about what we were actually talking about. 2025 Pan Ams, which as we record this is just happening, but if you were maybe listening to this years in the future, just know 2025 Pan Am Championships just happened. I think we saw the Brazilian team show definitely a drop off in results and scores that on the one hand emphasize the need to build depth, that once you have Andrade not there, Saraiva not there, etc., there's a big drop off in the scores, but then also is encouraging because how else do you build depth? By getting others competing. I think it's a necessary part of the process. And so I think it was really good to see that the next group of gymnasts and some of the new seniors for Brazil have that Pan Am Championships experience that kind of didn't go great in qualification. And then they came back in the team final and they were so pumped to have won team bronze, which is, the same thing that Brazil did at the Olympics, and now it's just at Pan Am's. But for that team was a really big deal that they were able to come back and do it. And that's how you build depth, even though you're going to go through those processes. Well, yeah, you're counting 11s.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you have any worries? Because we've seen countries go from the absolute pinnacles to not qualifying anyone to an Olympics.
Yes. It's like the cautionary tales, because we are at a point where, as you mentioned, we have seen that, and it could very well be Brazil has this golden generation of gymnasts, and then they retire, and then the results go away. That can happen. That's still one of the many possible futures in the multiverse. There's a possibility that happens, and I think if we look at those cautionary tales, one of the through the threads is not giving enough competition opportunities to the ones who aren't the stars to inspire them to keep going. I think on the one hand, I think everyone needs benchmarks and accomplishments, and I guess, the thing we learned from like the gamification of everything and streaks being popular is that it really keeps people motivated if you have accomplishments to work toward and games to keep going. Something gymnastics coaches have known for a very long time. Like, give people a game or a thing on the board or a streak or a bucket of beads and they'll be motivated. But I think you need that. You can't just have people get to a certain level and then feel like, well, Catalina Ponor is going to come out of retirement and make every team, and it's political, and I'm not going to get a spot in this team anyway, so why do I keep going?
Yep.
I think you need that. It's important to put in the funding, as everything goes back to money, to send people to World Cups and constantly have that be part of okay, I made a benchmark, I'm on the national team, and I got this assignment to a World Cup, I got a medal at a World Challenge Cup, and just having that constantly going also builds up the depth. So I think it's kind of the opposite of what we were talking about at the very beginning of Brazilian gymnastics history, where it was essential that they had all of those stars stick around and have that longevity because you don't have other people. Now you have to balance that with, okay, but it can't just always be those stars, because then everyone else is going to feel like, what is the point? I'm just going to quit.
Yep.
You can't just keep going back to that well. You have to have, and that's why you have to send people to so many different competitions. Because obviously, if Andrade is competing and Saraiva is competing, you're putting them on the world's team. Like, you're not expected to not put them on the team. That's your best team. But there have to be other opportunities for other people as well.
And I think what's interesting is, like, we have the Lohani generation and the Flavia generations they are the generations that were inspired by Gianni dos Santos. Like there is a interview that I think about all the time because it is Dos Santos, like outside in this beautiful park in Brazil, talking to Lohani when Lohani is like, I don't know, 7 or 8, and being like, "You're great, like you can do this. Like, what do you want?" And just giving this inspiring like talk to her. And what now we're gonna have the Andrade generation who have watched her
The
and are getting
Andrade
inspired by
inspires
her.
a nation portion of the episode, which is also every portion of every episode.
Yes, that's right. And so they are going to have that like influx of athletes, I think. But it is like going back to what you're saying about the balance of how you balance investing in people and showing them that you believe in them, but also giving people hope that yes, you can also break into this this pantheon of athletes who are funded and always good to go to everything. Because I think about, there are some programs like the Netherlands, for example, like they do very much the same thing. They invest in the athletes. They stick around for years. Like it is a long-term investment. And once you've won something, you don't just lose your funding the next year because, you needed a freaking year off to recover. But it's also almost impossible to break into the Olympic training system and get that kind of sponsorship and support. Obviously it's still more than you get here, but and that leads to like you have to keep people happy with all of their contracts and like the things that happen with Barbosa and making sure they can do all the things that they want to and grow. And that is where it takes a lot of trust and communication. And you see there's like a million ballet stories based on everyone hates the diva because she gets whatever she wants. The diva also gets whatever she wants because she always hits. Like this is the prima, it can always be relied on and always hit. So if they need to just smoke and drink.
So now at this point,
like,
the prima ballerina hit a bars routine. That's where we are in this analogy.
Yeah, that's where we at. So if they just need to party all week, but then can hit their, ballet on the weekend
and get a good D for a ballet. Yeah.
Right. Then that's what they need to do with their life. No, those are the olden days, obviously. God, do you think the ballerinas still smoke like crazy? There's so many gymnasts that smoke that I just still cannot believe they could do a full routine and smoke. But anywho, I hope not. Long story short,
that's the end of episode. And on the end of Brazilian gymnastics, we end with, I hope you're not smoking. The end. Take off on games, whatever.
Okay. I want to thank Liam so much for playing fantasy and obviously Liam, you're a genius because our fantasy is not easy and it's very fun and it's a good learning tool, but you have to know your shit. So Liam, you're a badass. Congratulations. And also, you can find all the videos that we showed today if you're a visual listener on our YouTube. There's so many of Brazil. And again, like we like to give people what they want. So if you just want, there's a whole reel of just gymnasts being silly, not doing gymnastics at pretty much every Worlds. And don't forget that our live show tickets are on sale now. Don't wait to get them. You can't buy tickets at the door. You can't buy tickets with cash. You have to buy your tickets ahead of time. And it's on July 18th. It's a Friday night. It's before Senior Classic on Saturday. We have a top secret special guest. And it's really fun. The live shows are super fun. So, and there might be some other people joining as well at the live show who you'll be very excited to be in the audience with. You never know. Like that one time at our live show when the whole, Olympic team with the 84 Olympic team showed up and watched the show in the front row. So please get your tickets. They're very fun. And it's also how live shows are a big part of how we are able to fund going to these world championships like Kitakyushu with no other media there, international media, Japanese media, and being able to give you these videos and interviews at the competition. So they're an important part of our funding and our budget for Worlds this year in Jakarta. So, and there are only 8 premium and VIP tickets left combined. So those are going fast. So thank you again so much to Club Gym Nerd member Liam for supporting the show. And coming up on Friday is our behind the scenes before this very important holiday where we celebrate the pen and not the sword. And until Friday at noon Pacific, 7 GMT, remember to take off on gay, split on rights, enjoy your life like you're on the Brazilian gymnastics team. Thank you for listening. In Andrade we trust. See you on Friday.